going on, Jeromes? We're back with 5 good Vikings questions, a little bit of Q&A. If you got a question, submit it on the community tab. We do a call out for Qs for various videos, usually once a week. First one. So a dude who set the combine on fire throwing on Saturday was Joe Milton III, the absolute cannon for an arm coming out of Tennessee. Jay Jett is 100. Thoughts on Joe Milton combine performance and him overall? So people are going to fall in love. And this is what we warn, is that the combine shouldn't raise or lower a prospect more than half a round, because Joe Milton is borderline undraftable. And I think that there's still a good chance that he does go undrafted. But, fans are speculating, well, could he go day 2? Could he surpass Spencer Rattler? Rattler had a bad combine. Or could he go ahead of Pratt? No, I think Milton, he's fun, but I think that the move of him to tight end and just him being like a Taysom Hill, occasional just chuck it type quarterback, I think that's going to be his role. But Milton, he's 6'5", he's 238, huge, gigantic, ginormous arm. Honestly, he could probably throw the ball 80 yards, flat-footed, but very limited accuracy, no touch, erratic, doesn't throw with anticipation. And what really stands out for me is that he only threw for 2,769 yards, in the Josh Heupel offense, which is extremely quarterback friendly. But he does turn 24 on March 6th. He was in college for 6 years, did have an injury there. But first 3 years were at Michigan, started 5 games in 2020, didn't do very well. Then he transferred because J.J. McCarthy was coming in. And that's how long he's literally been in college. He was a junior. He was going to be a senior, and he transferred because J.J. McCarthy was coming in. But then was at Tennessee for 3 years, couldn't beat out Hendon Hooker, finally got to start this year, and was eyed. He was fine. The arm is certainly going to get you there, but being a regular starting quarterback, or even like a QB2, I don't see it. Again, Saturday was fun, and it could open some eyes, sure, but I think his future is going to be that Taysom Hill type role. So, nah. Next up, George M. Hey, Andy, are there any more surprise cuts before free agency starts? All right, so Madison was a cut, not a surprise cut necessarily, but I feel like Dean Lowry is going to happen. Freeing up $2 million in cap space, he's going to be gone. But I think the 2 potential surprise cuts could be the 2 Harrisons. So Harrison Smith as well as Harrison Phillips. Now, Harrison Smith, not necessarily a surprise, but I think that it's either he wants to be cut or he wants to retire. I think that there's an outside chance that he's back at a severe pay cut, but I think the pay cut may be so severe that he may decide to test out the market if he wants to play. All right, but I think that if he retires, he's just gonna retire. There's not gonna be any pomp and circumstance. There might not even be a press conference. He's gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm done," and then the Vikings put him on the reserve retired list. Now, either way, if they cut or he retires, they save $11.384 million in cap space. And if Harrison still wants to play, I think the Vikings would cut him sooner rather than later, give him a head start on free agency, because him and his agent are free to talk to teams before the start of legal tampering, because cut players can sign at any point. So does he want to get a head start ahead of some of the other money? Maybe. But also the Vikings, his base salary is not guaranteed at all. There's no trigger date in terms of the 3rd day of the new league year. So the Vikings may just ride it out and see what Harrison wants to do, and giving him that latitude and respect. But yeah, Harrison Phillips, we brought him up before, where Phillips was by far the Vikings' best defensive lineman last year, but he is 28, going to be 29, and the Vikings would save $6.5 million by either cutting or trading him pre-June 1st. And it's a spot where, Are you going to re-sign him when his contract is up next offseason? Maybe. But also, is it a spot where you're able to land a Christian Wilkins or a Justin Matabuke or maybe even Chris Jones? And using that $6.5 million in cap space is a big part of getting the deal done. It's something that they would consider. And plus, I think if they were going to move on, they would do it before the start of the new league year to give him the same latitude as Harrison Smith and get a head start there. But other than that, I don't see any other crazy surprise cuts, like maybe Byron Murphy Jr., but nah. Next up, LFL football. Handy, would you prefer if the Vikings re-sign Kirko or not re-sign him? I feel like I've been like the Vikings, and I'm pretty consistent where we'll bring Kirk Cousins back, but it's a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal, but really it's window dressing and really only 1 year guaranteed. I'm not going past 2024 in terms of guaranteed money, and in terms of average per season, I would do 40. Right, that's what it is. And if Kirk, is able to go out and get Lulu money elsewhere in free agency, fully guaranteed, multiple years, go get it. Go get it, man. But that's where we're currently at. I feel like most rational Vikings fans are there, where they realize that if Kirk is back, it's short term. The Vikings, this regime does not want to sign him long term. Because they're very wary about the effects of time. Also, him coming off that Achilles, but also they know that Kirk played at a high level with Kevin O'Connell over the last 2 years and has a chance to do big time things in 2024. And he does get. People may not hear it, but he does give the Vikings the best chance to win 2024. Now, beyond that, that's certainly up in the air. So, if Kirk leaves and you bring in the rookie quarterback and go through some growing pains, is it a small step forward to take a big, small step back to take a big leap forward? You can certainly make that argument. Next up, Justin Colburn. Should the Vikings focus on free agent trading for an NFL experienced quarterback like Mayfield, Fields, Wilson, or should they put all their chips in for the draft? So I'm under the impression that if Kirk leaves, I just don't see them trading for Fields. I don't think the Bears would trade him in the division anyway. Russ. The only thing appealing about Russ is he would be able to sign for the league minimum, and is that enough to actually move the needle? Baker, I think Baker's going to get paid more than people think. I would prefer not to pay Baker Mayfield $35-40 million per year, but I think the Vikings and Kwesi would hedge their bet pretty solidly. I think that they would bring in like a high-level veteran quarterback, maybe not for big-time money. But could you see Minshew like a 2-year deal for $10 million per season? Sure. Could you see them take a swing on Sam Darnold? Potentially. Tannehill? No. Snoop Huntley, a Pro Bowler Snoop Huntley. I love that Trubisky's just on this list, but everyone's just like, no, never. And this sort of leads into the final question. Michael Converse, I know it's a scary thought, but I'd be interested to hear you entertain the idea of Cousins leaving to the highest bidder and then Kwesi missing on, say, the top 4 quarterbacks in the draft and not really liking what is left over. I think that scenario is a possibility that no one wants to talk about because it's depressing. Well, I know one thing, where if Kirk Cousins leaves, the Vikings aren't going to be boxed out for their preferred quarterback because their desperation would be worn on their sleeve. Everyone would know it. The Vikings would probably have to pay for through the nose. That's fine. But like we said, I think that the Vikings would make sure that they secure a decent veteran mid-level bridge quarterback. So they have that fallback option. And also, they have Nick Mullins. And Nick Mullins, frankly, operated the offense, the passing game fine last year, except for the stupid turnovers. Minor details. But I think the Vikings, if Kirk Cousins leaves, I think they're fully ready to move up into the top 3. And if Kirko leaves, though, say he signs with the Falcons, that certainly takes the Falcons, or likely takes the Falcons out of the contention for signing a quarterback. And say the Patriots sign Baker Mayfield, that could take them out of the contention for signing for drafting a quarterback as well. So that's actually the best case scenario for the Vikings in terms of maneuvering up and getting their guy, is if quarterback is spoken for with the Falcons and the Patriots, because they could trade up to 8 or they could trade up to 3. And the Vikings, whether they're in fully all in on May, whether they're in on McCarthy, whatever, I think that the Vikings would be significantly motivated, especially boxing out the Broncos, the Raiders, but maybe like the Bucs or the Steelers, moving up and poaching their guy, because they got to have it. They have to get it done. And I don't see it as a Christian Ponder situation where they just panicked and took a quarterback just to take a quarterback. I think they understand the strategy here. Plus, the Big Four this draft is a lot different than the Big Four of 2011, where it was Cam Newton 1, and then Gabbert and Jake Locker and Christian Ponder. No, I honestly could see the Big Four and probably even like 5 or 6 quarterbacks being starting caliber at some point in their career. But also, I think that the Vikings would have a fallback option of Penix. or maneuvering in the second round and taking Rattler or Michael Pratt or whoever, and then they'll just tell everyone, we wanted Michael Pratt all along, and he's our guy. Blah, 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 blah. But like we said, I think that they would hedge, by taking that veteran, like likely Gardner Minshew, and then being able to salvage whatever they could out of the situation. But I think that if Kirk leaves, I think the Vikings are getting into the stratosphere, or at least getting into the range where they know that J.J. McCarthy will go in all likelihood. So we'll see. But either way, that's why I'm kind of excited, because the only scenarios I would not like is if the Vikings completely strike out, which I think is highly unlikely. But it's non-zero. Of course, it's the Vikings, so you never know. Or if they give Baker Mayfield like $40 million a year, and then don't draft a quarterback. That's really it. Like, if Kirk's back, I still think that they draft a quarterback, because I think that he's going to be here on a 1-year deal, which would be the best of both worlds. If Kirk leaves, that gives the Vikings the impetus to make sure that they secure their guy and be aggressive. And yeah, it might take 3 first-round picks, might take a little bit more, but they will get their guy either way. But that's it. That's Q&A for the day. You guys are the best. You know what to do. Skol, production value.